context. Sustainability. Will this lead us toward or away from our future resource base described in our holistic context? And in the case of Craig and Sulani, this actually really was in line with their holistic context, and particularly in their future resource base, because they wanted to use, instead of machinery, they wanted to be able to use the animals, and instead of using chemicals, be able to use the animals. And so, again, we're looking at the long-term consequences, replacing fossil fuel with the goats. And what is that impact going to be on our future resource base? So it's not only has a positive effect on Craig's future resource base, but also probably on the future resource base of the clients, the people that he's working for as well. And finally, society and culture is going to be the last question. And considering all these things above that we've considered now, how do we feel about this decision? And part of that is going to be looking at the results, which we'll see in a moment. Part of it's going to be just that intuition or that gut feeling, which is something we need to listen to. Okay. So, and again, it's how do you feel? What's the emotional picture that you created? Is it socially sound? Okay, so in the goat business, we had those questions, and cause and effect, yes, it did address the problem that Craig was having. Was there a social weak link? Yeah, they could create problems being away from home, but it's not something they couldn't solve. Biological, there was no problem organism or endangered species or anything like that necessarily. So that didn't apply, and there was no financial weak link. He's, he figured it would be adequate income either way, the job or the goat business. Marginal reaction, we're going to come back to that in a moment because we're going to compare. The gross profit, he found that it would contribute in terms of profit annually $28,740 towards covering the overhead expenses. Energy money, it was a good use of money. They had savings, and it was kind of like mostly a one-time investment, most of it anyway. And so, and it also fit well with his future resource base. And then society and culture, well, we'll come back because we've got this. The other option was applying for a different position in the agency. So did it solve the problem? No, because he felt like he'd still be kind of stuck doing the same sort of thing. Social weak link, yeah, I mean, there were some issues there. He probably would come home grumpy, and Sulani would not like that very much if he stayed in the job or in a similar job. Biological, financial did not apply. We'll come back to marginal reaction. The gross profit, yeah, he would make more money just having a salary. There's no doubt about that. So that is a consideration. Energy and money, he just wasn't too sure about that because, he's driving a long ways to go to work. He drives a long ways in his work every single day. So that was kind of a question mark. Sustainability, no, it didn't lead him toward his future resource base. It's not really what he wanted. And, whoops. Oh, sorry, go back there. Got a little double click there. So if we compare the two, then as it came down to marginal reaction actually turned out to be best with the goats, that he had more free time, more flexibility. The gross profit, yeah, he made more money if he stayed in the job or a similar job, but it came down to that managing the goats was the better decision. And so that's what he is doing now, and he is enjoying it, and he's just done a lot of good work all over the Northwest. Okay, so I'm just about done here. I think we've got like how much time do we have, Colette? A couple minutes?
Yeah, you have another 5 minutes or so.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I just want to mention what we call the feedback loop, and that is that planning is a 24-letter word, as I mentioned earlier. You plan, you monitor, you control, and sometimes you have to replan again. Here's a little picture of what we're talking about here. And you also have feedback going either way, is you're monitoring, and that's going to affect your future plans as well. And really monitoring is so, so critical. We don't just monitor land. We also monitor human relationships, because especially in Craig's situation where he's, away from home a few months of the year, not all the time, but, much of 3 or 4 months out of the year. Sulani has to manage the things at home and the goats that are left at home. And so he's continually monitoring that. They're both monitoring that. And then there's also kind of monitoring that you're going to get into as well in later sessions about monthly monitoring of your financial plan, making sure your income is coming in as you planned it, making sure your expenses are not, going overboard, and then figuring out how you're going to get back on track if they are. So monitoring, you're looking for the earliest warning signs or the earliest possible indicators, particularly on the land. An example of that would be looking at the soil surface, because there is where you really get the beginning of the story as to what is happening on the land, and if things, if the ecosystem processes are being effective, if your cropland is going to be, it's going to be able to grow healthy plants for you and be productive enough, you need to look at the soil surface. So controlling, that's what I just talked about a moment ago, was when things do get off track, you've looked at the earliest indicator, now you have to take action. You have to make those minor adjustments, or sometimes you might have to make a major adjustment, and in some cases you may have to just go back and totally replan again. So the assignment is to read chapters 1, 4, 5, and 6 in At Home with Holistic Management. You're going to define your whole, page 53. You're going to draft your holistic, well, it says holistic goal, but holistic context exercises on page 65. And you're also going to evaluate a decision, and that is on page 84. I just want to mention one last thing, is that there are many tools that we use in holistic management, and of course many of these tools obviously have been used for a very long time. Technology, rest, meaning leaving the land alone to see if it will heal. Fire is still being used, and oftentimes, probably more often than not, overused. Grazing is a tool that we have in holistic grazing, holistic plan grazing, where we can use animals and improve the land, not deteriorating the land as most people believe, but actually improving the health of the land and the plants and sequestering carbon and restoring grasslands. And again, using those animals to create impact on the ground so that it can accept rainfall, it won't just run off, and so that we can cycle minerals, so that we can encourage, healthy plant and animal communities, and we can use a maximum capture of solar energy. Living organisms are something that we have, are more in more recent history using to control pests, for instance, instead of chemicals. And then money and labor, and then the last one behind that, human creativity. Those things, one of those things is needed to how can I say, to make the others happen. In other words, we need labor to, in terms of technology, creating technology, or whether we're grazing or whether we're burning a field, and money and labor often come into effect as well. But really, even though we all have the same basic tools, it's how we use those tools. Because things like rest, for instance, although in an area where I live that is what we call a more non-brittle, very humid area with perennial rainfall, if we leave land alone, it just grows up and gets covered with blackberries and trees and forests. But when we leave land alone in a very arid area that only has maybe some seasonal rainfall, the land will actually deteriorate. And that's a whole nother story. But I just want to say that, again, the tools that we use and how we use those tools will have a huge effect on the environment or the business. And then finally, the planning processes that we use in holistic management are holistic financial planning, which is what this is about. This is the lead into. Grazing planning, holistic grazing planning is what I use on my farm. Biological monitoring and other monitoring, I guess, is also really important, and again, something I use on my farm. And then land planning, whether you have animals or whether you have crops, land planning is a way to think about how you want to lay out your land, your infrastructure, your fences, your fields, all of those things. Okay, so any questions?
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. At this point in time, we don't have any questions that have come up. So what I'll suggest is that we continue on with Diane's presentation, and if you have some questions that come to mind for Sandy, that you go ahead and type them in, and we'll have that question and answer period at the end of Diane's talk where they can be answered. So Diane is going to talk about SWOT analysis.
Hi there. Sorry. I immediately started out with a computer glitch. And I'm sorry about that, but that's just the nature of the beast, isn't it? We're going to try to get us going.
I think you'll have to click from current slide and it should
There we go. There we go. Okay, sorry. Well, Sandy, that was fantastic and really gave me a lot of things to think about. And even though I've been farming and I have a certified organic farm and I've been farming since 1992, I can honestly say that we did not develop a farm business plan until we were probably into this for 8 to 10 years. When we started out, we pretty much just winged it, and that's what an awful lot of people end up doing. And it took us years to figure out what did and didn't work. And if I would have come to a course like this and gone through the holistic planning or utilized something like this Organic Farmers Business Handbook, I could have saved thousands and thousands of dollars from the beginning. But hindsight is everything, and now I know, and I use my farm business plan and work on it every single year and reassess it and reevaluate every single year, and find that the more tools I have to put in my toolbox and help me figure out how to analyze and improve what we're doing, the better chance I have for continuing to be successful and improve not only our farming practices but the bottom line and being able to make a profit, because truly we come into this farming endeavor to make a living, and ideally we want to be able to make a profit with that process. So I learn something new every time I hear and read more about holistic management. I can go through this book over and over again and rework my enterprise budgets and rework things, and it really helps me improve in the whole process.